Well, good evening, everyone. This is Bob Gums bringing you the Concerned Forum. Um, Many of you have seen me before when I used to live in New York and I was working with the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and I was doing videos uh, with their wonderful help. I decided in June of last year to leave New York and to leave the United States, period, in general, and come to Africa. One reason was to get married. So if the background that you see is somewhat different from what you're used to, that's the reason, because I'm trying to recreate the concerned forum here where I live in Uganda. Mm. Don't get it wrong, I'm still a registered Democrat and a member of DSA. But I'm here now and I'm trying to, like I say, I'm trying to recreate something. For those of you who are not familiar with me, um, let me briefly put it like this. I'm a native New Yorker, born out of Harlem. I spent 26 years in the military, primarily in the U.S. Navy. I have a background in intelligence. I was assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency after my first tour of sea duty, which was, by the way, on the nuclear aircraft carrier Nimitz. And after that, I was assigned to, as I said, DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, where I had to interact with the White House, CIA, NSA, Office of Management and Budget, and the whole kit and caboodle. And I was there for about 5 years, from '82 to 87. And that gave me a chance to really learn about the world that we live in and America's place in that world. And one of the things that aggravates me the most is the fact that in um, working America, uh, people are swayed by a lot of emotion and not by facts. And the only way that you can really grasp the facts is to educate yourself to those particular facts. And that's the purpose of this program, the Concerned Forum. We would greatly appreciate if you folks give us your support and also give comments, because we like to know what people are thinking about, the show that we're doing here. Now, also, let me begin by saying something that I really think needs to be said. And it comes from a fellow named William Lloyd Garrison. I think that the Democratic Party in the States needs to, how should I say, learn by his example. He started a newspaper in January of, what was that year? 1831. Oh. And at that time, the biggest political controversy was about slavery. And let me read this to you. And he starts off saying, "I do not wish to speak or write with moderation. I am in earnest, and I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard." I think that if the Democratic Party in America would adopt this temperament, I think that we might actually make some headway into trying to get the United States on a more enlightened, intelligent, humane path. Now, I don't know, I'm trying to understand why it is that there seems to be, this controversy. For example, the attack upon Zohan Mondami, the mayor of New York City. What did they say? Oh, well, he's a socialist. He's anti-Semitic. And, listen, Mondami won that election because the majority of the people of New York City, a lot of those folks happen to be Jewish Americans, felt that he is what is needed at this time. And let's be real. Mondami created, or how should I say, he basically did a big boo-boo. He did a big sin. And what was that sin? Well, that sin was the fact that he told the world that he was running for mayor of New York City, and that he would put the needs and interest of the citizens of the city that he was running to be the mayor of first and foremost. You remember when they had that debate, and the question was asked to all these folks, including former Governor Cuomo, well, if you get elected, what's the first thing you want to do? Where are you going to go? And it seems like they all, with the exception of Zohan, all the rest of these people essentially bent the knee. I'm going to go to the Wailing Wall. I'm going to go to Tel Aviv. This, that, And the capital sin that Zohan Mondani committed was the fact that he said publicly and unashamedly, I'm running for mayor of New York City. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the issues facing New Yorkers. And for that, this man is regularly crucified. DSA, which I am also, like I said, I'm a registered Democrat, and I'm also a member of DSA. And this man, this mayor, was and is constantly being crucified because he said that I'm going to take care of business in New York City. And that is his sin. That's what brings out the outrage of the, mainstream Democrats, much of the media, because this man had the cojones to stand up and say, New York is my city. That's who I'm working for. That's what I'm worrying about. Now, this just goes to show how warped and sick American politics has become. Because quite frankly, I don't understand why you are going to have a forum of all these people running for mayor, and you're going to throw out the question, where are you going to go? What you going to do if you get elected? I don't understand why that was necessary. I don't understand, the purpose behind that. But Zohan Mondami gave the correct answer to me. I mean, in the Navy, we always say there's no such thing as a stupid question. But I'm sorry, to me, that was about as stupid as it gets. He's not running for mayor of Tel Aviv. He's running to be mayor of New York City. And because, in so many words, that's what he said, he has been viciously punished and harassed and hounded by the media with charges of anti-Semitism, communist, and all this other crap. And, I think it's a shame. I think it's a damn shame. I think that it's, as I said, I think it's an indication of just how crackpot our politics in America has become. It's like you're going to punish me for saying that I'm going to, if I win, I'm going to do the job that the people elected me to do. Doesn't mean that I'm some kind of flaming genius and everything that I attempt to do will work out 100%, and there will be rainbows and unicorns and cotton candy and all that other good crap. But what it means is that I am going to put my intelligence, I'm going to put my energy towards solving the problem or solving the problems of the residents of New York City. Now, I thought that's what the hell people run for public office to do, to solve the problems or to try and come up with solutions for the problems for the district, the county, the city, the state where they live. So the fact that this man is being attacked for that, for saying that he's going to do his damn job, I think it's disgusting. That's me, right? That's like saying when I was in the Navy, well, I'm in the Navy because I want to chase butterflies. No, I'm in the Navy because I wanted to be a sailor for the United States of America. That's the job I wanted. That's what I'm going to do. Well, this is the same thing with Mondami. He wanted to be mayor of New York City to deal with the issues of New York. So what in the hell is wrong with that? I think that, and there's a myriad of issues that we're going to be talking about from day to day on the Concerned Forum. But I think that we have to start off on a base, and I know people will not like to hear me say this, but I think our biggest problem in America, in American politics, and in America in general is racism. I'm sorry. And that racism does not only apply to black Americans. If you look at American history, the racism, it's something that's endemic. Just like when when a lot of us were kids. It's a time that I grew up in, and you play cowboys and Indians. Everybody wants to be a cowboy. Nobody wants to be an Indian. And see, this is the problem that we have as a nation. And when you have that type of mentality, that somehow you are superior, and that everyone else in the world is inferior, it's like a disease, okay? It causes you not to be able to think straight. I saw in my lifetime, because I was too young for the Korean War, but I was in the military doing Vietnam, and I saw how this attitude, this mindset, caused us to wind up having, what's the figure now? uh, 58,000. 58,000 American men and women essentially came back in body bags. And I would say that racism is the primary cause. Uh, yes, I do believe in American exceptionalism, but it depends on how you define that term exceptionalism. Yes, America, in many ways, we are exceptional. I think that one of the problems is that we don't, I don't know, we don't deal, with what makes us exceptional. We have a president right now that's sitting up in the White House that is basically killing the thing that made America exceptional, and that is immigration. Okay? Unless you're a Cherokee, Shoshone, etc., and I'm just throwing indigenous tribes out there, but unless you're one of them, you're a freaking immigrant. And the people that we're talking about, they were here first, okay? And yet now we have people like Trump and people who support him that talk about, oh, well, they're poisoning the bloodstream of America. What bloodstream? What the hell are you talking about? We're here. We're Irish, we're Polish, we're German, we're Italian, we're Eastern European Jew. I mean, what the hell are you talking about? We're Spanish, we're Latino, we're indigenous Americans, we're Africans. America, some people call it a melting pot, some people call it a salad. But, I think either one of those work, quite frankly. And the fact that you have people basically tearing down the thing that makes America great, I think that's a distinct problem. Listen, in terms of what Donald Trump has done to this country, to the United States, look, you give a clown a crown. So you have to expect that that clown will turn the palace into a circus. And that's what has happened to the United States. We have become a nation where we run around the world blowing people up. We have a president and we have a secretary of defense and we have a vice president, depending upon what day it is, who talks, 1 minute he's in favor of bombing Iran, the next minute through his, how should I say, his network of supporters, he comes out against it. And these people are war criminals. No two ways about it. And I hope to see those people prosecuted eventually within the next couple of years. And one of the reasons why I am so into wanting to see Trump and especially Hexpeth and even Vance, the reason I want to see these people prosecuted is because I am a member, I should say former member of the United States Navy. I was a sailor. And the idea that you use American power to kill fishermen, and then you're going to say, oh, well, they were transporting drugs. Well, how the hell are we supposed to know that? You want to kill people in the Caribbean, off the coast of Latin America. You want to kill people with no evidence. And like I said earlier, I'm born and raised in New York, right out of Harlem. Okay? Now, anytime when we see a big drug bust, okay, what happens? Oh, okay, well, you're going to have the police commissioner uh, many times working in conjunction with, say, the FBI or what is it, DEA, all that good stuff. And then you got all the big wigs wanting to, get their 5 minutes of fame. And then they'll have everything on a big, long table, weapons, ammunition, uh, uh, pack, of cocaine or heroin or, whatever it is, fentanyl, whatever, right? That all that stuff will be laid out on the big table. And they'll be talking about, yeah, well, we confiscated so and this much, and here it is, right? But with the Trump administration, you don't see that. You don't have that. You just say, oh, well, we saw the boat, so we blew it up. Now, from my experience, being a serving sailor for the United States Navy, I've seen so-called Cuban refugees picked up out of the ocean. I've seen Haitian refugees picked up out of the ocean. Although nowadays they send the Haitians back to Haiti, but I've seen people being picked up. I've seen suspected drug runners picked up out of the ocean. But nobody tried to murder these people. Nobody tried to kill these people. So what is it now that was so important that these people had to be murdered at sea? And as a former sailor, yeah, I got big problems with that. If I'm not mistaken, didn't we hang Nazis for doing that type of stuff during World War II? So what I'm trying to understand is what makes this any different. See, we have a situation now where, we have all of these, Trump voters, and you see it every time you look on YouTube and the other social media platforms. Oh, well, I made a great mistake in voting for Trump, and things are so terrible now, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to understand, listen, man, look, we told you. 92% of black Americans, the majority of American people warned you. Now you have Kamala Harris, and she's much nicer than I am, because I'm a great believer in I told you so, because that's the only way sometimes it seems people learn. But everything that she warned the American public about, and she said, this is what will happen if Donald Trump wins the election in November 2024. And I find it amazing that everything that she said, now don't get me wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you, I did not like the way the campaign was run. I think that one of the mistakes that she made was that she let things get out of hand. She allowed the so-called mainstream Democrats to essentially take over, okay? And I was not pleased about that. I think that that's one of the big things that hurt her. I think that Joe Biden should have stepped away way earlier than he did. And that would have allowed more of an input from the base of the party. But putting that aside, one of the things about being an adult, and you could say one of the problems about being an adult, is that sometimes you have to make hard choices, okay? You have to, because I hear people talk about, oh, well, you talk about the lesser of two evils. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to vote at all. Or I'm going to vote for some, I don't know, third party person that doesn't stand a damn chance of winning, right? Hmm. I don't think that that's a mature for the American voter. I don't believe that that's good for our democracy, quite frankly, because we're all not going to see things eye to eye. All you can do is basically try and get the best. Okay, um, unfortunately, Americans fail to do that, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in now. Now, let me say that this particular video I'm doing tonight, right? I'm not going to hit you with a bunch of facts and figures. Okay, this is just, I'm doing this video tonight just to get the program rolling. There will be time to talk about the facts and the figures. But I want people to understand that we have some very substantive problems in the United States. And again, I will say that the biggest problem is race. And I repeat, I know a lot of people will take offense, don't want to hear it. And frankly, I don't give a damn. Okay, because one thing that we're dedicated to here on the Concerned Forum is speaking the truth. This country is going through hell, and I fear that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And that is a result of people not wanting to deal with truth. Okay? Some people might call my approach radical. What does radical mean? Radical means that you get to the root of the problem. And that's how I look at things, okay? Sometimes you have to get radical. Sometimes you have to go directly to the root of the problem. And in America, that problem is racism. And mind you, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, it ain't just about racism towards black folks. Okay, that's already documented. No matter how much Donald Trump tries to rewrite American history, it's already documented. He's attacking the Smithsonian for just telling it like it is and like it was. So, what's next? He's going to attack the Library of Congress because all the pictures, all of the books, all the manuscripts, they're all there. And then what else is he going to do? Is he going to go to Britain? Is he going to try to attack Lloyd's of London? As they have their archives about the triangular slave trade and what that was all about. I guess what I'm saying is, when the hell does it stop? When the hell do the American people actually sit down and learn about their history? And it doesn't mean that, America has been inhabited by monsters, by really bad people. Yeah, you do have some monsters in American history. You do have some very bad people in American history. But by the same token, you had very great people, like William Lloyd Garrison, like John Brown, like the Grimke sisters, and on and on and on. Right? You want to keep it fair and balanced? Then tell the truth. Right? Teach Americans the truth. What's that thing that religious people talk about? The truth shall set you free? Well, there's merit in that comment. And that's what Americans need to do. That's what we need to have happen. in the United States. We need to have the truth set us free. You know, I find it so it's, it's so ironic. Um, Americans actually talk about other nations. Oh, well, you know, those folks in the, I always say so-called Middle East, all right? Because the term Middle East was something that was put out there by the Brits, okay, back in their heyday of empire. But they always try to disparage non-European, non-American nations. Oh, well, those Africans, they're so corrupt. You know, African leaders are so corrupt, right? And so incompetent. And, you know, I listen to this and, you know, I look at this and I say, well, can somebody tell me what the hell is happening in the United States now? A guy goes into office January 25th. Today is what, January 31st, 2026. And he, you know, he's ahead by like, what, $2.5 billion bucks, $2.5 billion? And you got the nerve and the audacity to talk about African nations being corrupt? You need to look in the damn mirror, quite frankly. And the amount of manipulation, mineral grabbing that has been going on for the last, what, couple of 100 years, and you have the nerve to, how should I say, you have the nerve to denigrate other people's. I find that so weird. I find it like mental. And see, this is a result of that racism. That's how come we had those 58,000 body bags coming back to America, because of the fact that you felt that you knew better than the majority of the Vietnamese people about what type of government that they wanted to have for themselves. That's all Vietnam was about. And how, you know, how much money you could basically squeeze out of Southeast Asia, okay? Anybody that tells you that Vietnam was about anything different, they're not being honest with you. Now, this business about, again, the so-called Middle East, and this idea that Israel is at the mercy of all these terrible Islamic brown people. No, that's not the truth. And I would tell anyone, read the history. There's only two important subjects that you need to learn in school: mathematics and history. Everything else flows from those two subjects, okay? The idea that you want to take a bunch of Caucasian Eastern Europeans and plant them as a separate entity, right, in the, right smack in the middle of a bunch of brown Islamic people, and then you make it possible for these Israeli people to basically, how should I say, rule the whole, that whole area. Hell, like Albert Einstein said that was a crazy notion, okay? And they wanted him to be president, and he turned it down for good reason. And I'm going to tell you something else that I resent. I resent that anytime someone speaks up on behalf of the Palestinians and the people on the West Bank who are being murdered, being thrown out of their homes, right? And you want to speak up for justice for those people, and you're labeled an anti-Semite. And that really makes me angry. And I'll tell you what it makes me think of. It makes me think, um, and anyone familiar with the African American community know exactly what I'm talking about, where you have jive-ass bullshit preachers, okay, that try to talk the word of God, but are basically, robbing from the parishioners, and basically having sex with, outside of their marriage with every woman in their congregation they can get a hold of. And then if something, an incident happens and they want to, I don't know, use the whole history of America's racial trauma to somehow benefit themselves. As a black man, I resent that kind of crap, quite frankly. And I believe that that's the problem that we have when we speak about the things that Israel has done. Yes, Netanyahu, the Israeli president, is a war criminal. Yes, he should be arrested. Okay? Yes, I feel that our president is also a war criminal because he started a war against a country that didn't do a damn thing to us. I don't want to hear this nonsense, okay, about, oh, well, they have killed Americans. But what are you talking about? What were Americans doing there in the first place? Were they there as tourists? And that's how they got killed? No. And I'm a veteran, okay? And come to my face and tell me that I don't give a damn about those boys and girls that are out there on those ships and, in that whole Middle Eastern area with targets on their backs. Tell me I don't give a shit. Tell me I don't understand what it feels like to be upon a carrier or a cruiser or a frigate or a destroyer in hostile waters doing that dog watch. But right is right. And right is supposed to make might. And what we have been doing in the United States is wrong. Okay? I mean, I'm ashamed to say it as a Navy guy, but what happened with the Vincents when they blasted over 300 Iranians out of the sky? I believe these people were like pilgrims or something heading to Mecca, and we blew them out of the sky. But nobody speaks about that. And what about the sailors aboard the USS Liberty? Right? How the Israeli Air Force decided to blow those fellow sailors, my fellow sailors, into oblivion, as if they had something to hide. And we're not supposed to speak about that, because if we do, we're labeled as anti-Semites. Listen, my parents, my mom and dad were Republicans, black Republicans, and they were a part of the Civil Rights Movement. They did the demonstrations, the rallies, voter registration, the whole bit, okay? And growing up as I did, a black kid in Harlem that was made aware of what was going on at that time, back in the late 50s and early 60s, I always think of the Jewish rabbis who were beaten and blown up in the cause of civil rights for African Americans. So I don't need to hear some bullshit about, well, because I stand with the Palestinian people, that somehow that makes me an anti-Semite. That's bullshit. I will try to hang a goddamn anti-Semite just as quick as I would love to see a KKK person fall off a cliff. See? But I don't like that. Just like I don't like people that try to use the 400 years of slavery, murder, lynching, and suffering against black people. I don't like to see black people who think they can capitalize upon that. Okay? I don't like to see black people, especially um, black Republicans, who try to basically make a living trying to make white people who are already, those white folks who are bigoted, uh, feeling, oh, well, there's really no racism. Look at, this black guy says there's no racism. Okay? I don't like people playing games with me. And when you tell me that I'm somehow wrong or an anti-Semite because I have a problem with thousands of Palestinian children, babies, and women being blasted out of into oblivion, yeah, I got big problems with that. And I also have problems. I don't know, the figures bounce back and forth. I know from my time at the Pentagon that a lot of money flows to the Israeli government. And this is a country where they have free universal education for college, that there's no sweat when it comes to health care. But Americans here are struggling and in many cases dying. And that doesn't make sense to me. And I resent people calling me an anti-Semite because I raised the question. I would also point out that the majority of Jewish New Yorkers voted for Zohar Mondami. Okay, I just wanted to put that in there because I don't believe in this crap. Israel, however they got there, they are now a sovereign nation. And as an American, as a resident of this planet, I reserve the right to criticize my government, anybody else's damn government, when I believe that they are going afoul of the universal laws of decency and humanity that America was we were a signatory of that at the Nuremberg trials and at the founding of the United Nations. See, if you want to say, well, look, I'm a big boy, I'm a sovereign nation. Well, one of the things about being a big boy sovereign nation is that you have to take criticism. Just like here, just like in the United States, right? That's built into the American Constitution, the right to criticize your government. And that's the rotten fish that I smell out of this whole business. Now, to move it a little more to the political, I get so damn sick and tired of these mainstream apparatchik, what do you call them in Russia? Apparatchik, Democrats, including the Black Caucus and the NAACP. They've been doing a lot of backsliding as far as I'm concerned. And their biggest fear is the Democratic Socialists of America. Now, we have a president, and everybody can see that this guy is physically falling apart, right? Hey, look, I'm not no spring chicken, okay? So I'm not gonna, just like Lindsey Graham kicked off the other day, right? I'm a year older than he is. And sometimes as a good sailor, sometimes I'm kind of superstitious. So I'm not going to talk about, oh, well, he dropped dead, blah, 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 good for him. No. The things that he's done and fought for, history will deal with that. But what I am saying is that if you're going to, how should I put it? If you're going to try and denigrate people, we have a right to know that you know what the hell you're talking about. That's one of the problems. I used to love Bill Maher. I really did. I have followed him from the days of DC Cab. But Bill has a bad problem. A lot of the time he shoots his mouth off about stuff that he has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And that's that's another great problem that we have in American politics. Now, right now, you have a bunch of red hat wearing folk, okay? At least they were in November of 24, and talking about, Donald Trump, I'll take his word before I take the word of Jesus, which I think is carrying this whole thing a bit much, right? But what in the hell does somebody from Alabama or Mississippi or Arkansas, what the hell do you know about Donald Trump? People from New York, born and raised in New York, know all about the Trumps, okay? But you didn't want to hear those people. You didn't want to listen to those people. And all you saw was this dark-skinned woman, okay? Former prosecutor, United States Senator, Vice President, but that meant nothing to you. Now, I know that you have these folks that say, it's because the Democrats were insufficient when it came to dealing with the economy. Well, the truth of the matter was and is that the economy was starting to come back. This is after going through COVID and all this other BS. But you had Trump and his minions out there basically saying, no, you can't trust the black lady with the economy. So those that say, it wasn't about race, it was about the economy, they're both right and they're both wrong. The racial thing comes in because of the fact that you did not want to trust that black woman about, with the economy, okay? And I'll tell you something, I'll be honest about it. I give you Trump voters, or how should I say, Kamala voters, right? I'll give you a break because I don't think any woman from the Democratic Party at that time in November of 24, I don't think any woman could have won, right? Because too much of the American mind has been so corrupted, okay, with this whole, this idea that it was not a straight white male. And when you're talking about Donald, as I've seen with the Epstein files, I'm starting to have my doubts about that, which is fine. You swing how you want to swing. But see, that's another problem. You and your friends feel that other people are garbage and you have a right to do anything that you want with them. Now, I hear all this stuff about, Trump is a pedophile, blah, blah. I don't know that. But we do know that Donald is protecting these people. So that's some more questions that need to be asked. Oh, and by the way, in terms of Russia, I know myself from my experience at the Pentagon, yes, Donald was very much wrapped up for the longest time with Russian oligarchs. That's just a fact, okay? So that's why I encourage my red hat wearing friends to maybe you want to think next time around before you speak, if we do have it next time. Um, like I said, these are just some of the things that I just wanted to get off my chest and reintroduce myself to the social media network. We will be dealing with facts and figures over the coming days and weeks. But these are just some of the things that me personally, that I want to speak to. Because our country is in a very, very precarious state, okay? Americans are dying and suffering horrible wounds. And again, as a former intelligence person, no, I wouldn't trust a word coming out of Donald Trump's mouth. I wouldn't trust a word coming out of Pete Hegseth's mouth. And that's another thing. These two birds have really, truly crippled our military. You have many highly qualified, highly skilled, non-white and female officers in the higher ranks. And Hegseth has made it his mission to get rid of them. Read up about, in history, read up what happened to the Soviet Union when Stalin started, his political purge on the officer class. Before, right before World War II, a few years before World War II. And that's one of the reasons why, at the beginning of World War II, Russia wound up getting its ass kicked. Because Stalin had gone to the military and had basically, he had a lot of them shot, he had a lot of them sent to Siberia behind political nonsense. And this is the same damn thing that Pete Hegseth has been doing. And we're getting our butt kicked in the so-called Middle East, and he runs around taking pictures off the walls in the Pentagon of women, courageous women, courageous black military people, Latino military people, Asian military people, and he finds it, he's more worried about shooting our military guys with testosterone. Now, if that's not the height of insanity, I don't know what the hell is. And this is what, I look at these people, these red hat people, who are now crying because they've lost their food stamps, we call it now SNAP benefits. They can't afford to put gas in their car. They have to choose between getting gas and getting dinner. There's no hospitals for them, right? Because between Trump and what's his name, Elon Musk, they've closed rural hospitals. And I look at these people, and I say to them, listen, what you're going through right now, this is a racism tax. Okay? This is a racism tax. You wouldn't want to, you didn't want to vote for the black lady, and this is what, this is what you got. You let this man make a chump out of you, and you're paying the price. Because racism, it does cost. And it is costing America. And people, you need to realize that. And as I said before, we're at a precipice in the United States. And the question is, are we going to save ourselves? Or are we going to lose our democratic experiment? Remember what Ben Franklin told that woman when she asked, Doctor, what have you given us? A monarchy or a republic? And Ben told her, he said, look, baby, we're giving you a republic if you can keep it. And that's where we stand now. So, folks, we're going to have a lot more. Hope you like it. If you don't, sorry about that. But we are always going to endeavor to speak the truth here. So until the next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and may God take care of the United States. Peace.